contend that the ability to wage nonviolent struggle is a skill. It's a skill-based enterprise. I mean, to draw a crass analogy, it's almost like, a game of soccer is skill. It's not a game, waging nonviolent struggle, but it's the same kind of struggle. Movements get better at it over time. So as information spreads about this, people are getting better. And I will say that the amount of resources for people, the amount of communication going on among activists around the world seems to be increasing quite a bit. The other thing is that confidence matters. Part of what made Tunisia so remarkable is that it gave Egyptians confidence that they could do what they could do. And when Egyptians did, it gave Libyans confidence that they could do it. Now, Libya didn't go on that same path for too long. It went in a different direction, but Syrians as well, Yemenis, people in Bahrain. I have to skip this, I don't have time. Do I hear me? Okay. This is a pamphlet that people can get. It's called How to Protest Intelligently. It was put out by Egyptian demonstrators. There were 20,000 of them printed, passed out. This is just one little example of information dissemination. They had examples of signs that people could hold, talking about how the police and the people were together. And here people are clearly learning about how to deal with the police. One way to deal with the police, embracing them. Okay? They mapped out routes for people so that they could reach a critical mass quickly and then be able to go to Tahrir Square. They even used Google Maps. Skip that. They had, here's what you should wear. Now this is all very tactical. There's a lot of knowledge that can be spread around that's broader and more strategic and based on sort of big ideas, but I don't have time to show examples of that. So this is just a little example in Egypt of like what they did to spread some of this information. Here's where you need to put your spray paint on the cameras and on the windshields of the vehicles that are trying to oppress you. Here's how to publish this information. Don't post it online, just use a photocopier. Here's another, this is the Fellowship of Reconciliation put this out. This is about the civil rights movement. It was found by an Egyptian blogger, I believe Dalia Ziada, and it got translated into Arabic and spread it around. Information spreading. Now, new technologies, and I'm sorry I'm rushing, I've really only got 2 minutes left. This is a big topic of debate. I can't come up here and tell you new technologies are great, they're really going to unlock everything, and I can't tell you they're really overrated, they're not going to do anything. And there are people on both sides who will tell you either of those things. I mean, not 100%, but there's a lot of disagreement about this issue, and the sides are pretty clearly defined. On the pros, people say, well, new technologies give us publicity, allow us to collaborate, give us alternative political space to talk, develop rhetoric and discourse, give us global reach, give us anonymity so we can do things. Here's an anonymous Egyptian activist. We use Facebook to schedule protests, Twitter to coordinate, and YouTube to tell the world. And to be sure, if before digital technology there were certain countries in which a regime had control of 100% of the information all the time, anything less than 100% control of that information represents a loss for them. And I think it's very difficult now to find a society in which regimes control information 100% of the time. On the other hand, the cons, misinformation can be spread. Lots of people can try to stir up violence, extremist rhetoric, divisions, security risks. I mean, Facebook, people get arrested, forced to give away their password, then all their friends are arrested. This is nasty stuff. There's a digital divide. There's still a lot of people who aren't online. What's available for them? Clearly, if just being online was sufficient, but it's not. Because there's plenty of people who aren't. Even those who aren't necessarily checking into Facebook on these political blogs all the time. Information overload is a real issue too. Analysis paralysis, just too much. Information is not always knowledge. So here's a recent quote from an Egyptian activist. The counter-revolution, the revolution trying to undo what just happened, has also started using Facebook as well in order to face our revolution and spread false information. Facebook right now is bringing us to a big paralyzed state, a massive flow of information that in some ways holds us still, keeps us focused on just trying to keep up with things more than actually taking part and moving forward. We're also an isolated community from other communities in Facebook, such as, basically each community is sort of self-segregating and not creating a broader dialogue. Here's one other point. What's this? This is the amount of digital traffic on January 27th out of Egypt, and that's January 28th. If a movement depends only on digital technology to organize itself, just look at January 28th. That could be taken away. Now some people will say, well, you can use satellite phones and other things and dial-up access. That's true, but still the picture is pretty stark. So, conclusion in 1 minute. There is a co-evolution going on right now about new technologies. Those who are oppressing are trying to find ways to use them to oppress. Those who are attempting to fight oppression are using them the other way. It's a co-evolution where each side is trying to get ahead of the other and they leapfrog each other. I think this proves that the digital realm, at least in some cases when the internet can be shut down, is not a substitute for, but rather an extension of offline organizing. It doesn't matter how good your online platform is. If you don't have a message that moves people, it's going to be difficult to move people. If you don't have structures on the ground that can mobilize people, or a movement doesn't, the internet shut off, what does it do? So building this, what I call functional redundancy, is really important as well. The rest is still open to debate about the impact of this technology, and I think will be for the foreseeable future. One note on that is that there is some quantitative research that's starting to be done. So instead of just stories about what various technologies did, real cross-cutting, large number research about what technologies have done across a lot of cases, and it will be interesting to see what that reveals. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions?
After the bulk of the Egyptian uprising, what would you say was the cause of the lack of respect for women? I mean, I read in the newspapers straight from the Egyptians' mouth that the whole respect for women being equal to them during the uprising, it really died out during the bulk of it. You were talking about unity.
Right.
Unity.
Right.
What do you think was the problem there? Why did that die out so quickly?
Well, how exactly did it? I need a little more information before I can answer your question. My understanding, based on those whom I've spoken with, is that women were a really major part of that revolution. And part of why we didn't see it as much in the media was because the media wanted to gravitate towards scenes of rock throwing and scenes that they sort of, of real contention where women generally weren't throwing as many rocks. But again, this is based on the people I've spoken with. Women weren't just in that revolution, they were leading some of that revolution.
Absolutely. One of the articles I read was saying how, I don't remember the exact date, but the women were, asking for equal rights, and they were having their own form of, protest or demonstration, rally, whatever you want to call it. And there were Egyptian men who were part of the whole uprising as well that were, telling them, you have no place here. You shouldn't get equal rights. This was the article I read too. I don't remember where it was from though.
Yeah,
It was on International Women's Day.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't read the article, so it's kind of hard for me to comment on it. I mean, what you're saying is plausible, of course. I mean, just because a movement stands for change doesn't mean everyone agrees on what the role of women should be. It's also possible, not separate from that category, but it's quite possible that there are, regimes also really try to plant people to say things that are really unpopular and look really bad on international news, as well as divide a movement. I wouldn't leave that outside the realm of possibility, but I just don't know.
Any other questions?
Really? No one disagrees with me? Wow.
I'm sure my students, they have questions there.
I made a comment here. You were demonstrating the monolithic power, not structure, pyramid, which reminded me, some years ago, David Icke was talking about similar pyramid. And his point was that even though the one that's sitting on the top and we are at the very bottom,